Carpenter, who is a local program manager for adult services in Nevada County. She is on the front lines. Even more on the front lines is our own AAUW member, Ilene Klein, a licensed clinical social worker who is working with Sierra Nevada Home Care, a department of Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital. She'll share some of her experiences and tips for us. The second part of the program, Jamie Reeves, Senior Product and Portfolio Manager at EduCause, and incidentally, Penny Savely's daughter, has made some connections with us with a real expert in global cybersecurity, Ilene Klein, who's worked in this area for over 20 years, will giving us tips about how to stay safe online. Looking forward to this program greatly. So let me stop sharing that. Stop share.
So I can start and jump right in here to introduce Kelly, if I may.
Yes.
We thank you, Kelly, for taking a Saturday to come spend some time with us. I know that you are a full-time plus worker, and we appreciate you being here today. Kelly has been with the county for 14 years, working in the area of adult protective services. She is a she has a master's in health administration and gerontology. And today she's going to focus on one portion of what the adult protective services cover. Within that same department, they have in-home support services, senior outreach nurse program, and public guardians. The mission of the adult services is opening doors, building communities, and being of service to the county's citizens regarding social eligibility for all various services. In her personal life, Kelly likes spending time with two daughters, Emily and Molly, those are cute names, working in her flower garden, biking in the canyon, yoga, and the best part, being a faithful servant to her cat, Thomas. So Kelly, thank you so much for being with us today. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Bernadette for giving me the opportunity to share the work we do in the Adult Protective Services Department. Before we get started, whoop, is that the content is gone. There, okay. Oh, that's odd. So, okay, well, we'll just stay there. The title page the words are gone, so that's okay. Before we start, I thought I'd give everyone an update on where we are with COVID. This time last year, we pivoted staff to a teleworking model and were mandated by the state to do phone reassessments only unless it was an emergency. Our volume of telephone time significantly increased due to folks being lonely and wanting to talk longer. And our social workers were more than happy to have this connection as well. It made providing services challenging, but we were able to make sure that those core services stayed in place for our clients. So as of about 3 weeks ago, we were able to go back into the field as normal. We have PPE and are very respectful of our clients' concerns and meeting people on their porch or in their front yard versus in their home. During this past year, our staff has assisted with meal delivery programs, staffing homeless warming shelters, and our senior outreach nurses are providing vaccines to homebound seniors and folks with disabilities. Our senior outreach nurses has also did a heavy lift and assisted our public health department in making those COVID contact tracing calls as well. So, next slide, please. So here's the makeup of our adult protective team. We have 2 social workers, and 2 important facts for our county is we travel great distance because we have 978 square miles in our county. We have twice the state average of folks over 65. And the age group that we're getting the most calls on lately is late 70s and on. Last year, we had 8 cases of clients that there were 100. Next slide. There we go. Who does APS serve? So we serve adults 65 and older and folks with disabilities 18 to 64. With the report of abuse for 18 to 64, there needs to be a connection between the person's disability and the allegation of the report. So for instance, if someone is visually impaired and has a caregiver who's writing checks and the client is not aware of it. Next slide, please. How can we assist? APS operates much differently than CPS. APS services are voluntary and folks have the right to refuse services. However, if our report indicates some kind of cognitive decline, our social workers are skilled and will try additional visits to connect with the client to gain a better understanding about the situation. Sometimes it takes multiple visits. Another important distinction in APS regulations are designed for short-term assistance to resolve the protective issue. APS cases are expected to close within 30 to 90 days. However, we are seeing an increasing need to provide longer-term case management services. Next slide, please. Here are the welfare and institution codes that guide our investigation. We will look for the presence of any of the following elements in our cases of abuse by others or self-neglect. Next slide. These are common signs of possible abuse by others. We rely on our community. They're the eyes and the ears to assist us in protecting our seniors and folks living with disabilities. You don't need to have certain proof about an allegation. If it's just, you just don't have a good feeling, something is just not sitting well with you, you can always call our office for a welfare check. Our approach is always very respectful, gentle, and kind with our clients. And also our reporting parties are always confidential, so that information is not disclosed. Next slide. Here's a case study of abuse by others. Mr. Jones was a 75-year-old veteran who was living with an adult daughter and an adult grandson. Unfortunately, Jane suffered from a substance abuse addiction and sadly led her to using Mr. Jones's Social Security income. She was buying little to no food for the family and was gone most of the time. Mr. Jones was left to sit in his room most days. Our office was called in and thankfully, Mr. Jones was willing to work with our office to change his living situation. Within a month and a half, we were able to get Mr. Jones a representative payee for his Social Security monies. We were able to apply for additional veterans benefits for him, and we were able to locate a board and care, and we actually physically moved him into the board and care. So within a month's time, Mr. Jones gained a needed 10 pounds and was doing really well and was out of his room and visiting with the residents. In this particular case, APS cross-reported to law enforcement for suspected financial abuse, neglect, isolation, and deprivation of food. Law enforcement, what they do is they pick up our case, they complete an investigation, and if there's enough evidence, then they forward it to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution. That was a good outcome. Next slide, please. So we can turn our attention to self-neglect. With self-neglect cases, more than one element is usually present, if not all of them. And last month alone, just to give you an idea, we had 50 cases of self-neglect. And self-neglect can be of person, property, or finances. Next slide. A case study for Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith was a retired supervisor from a telephone company and had a monthly pension of about $3,500 a month. And she did not qualify for any public assistance. and she was unwilling to pay for any care in the home. She had clear paths from the front door to her couch where she slept and to the bathroom. She had no family. She was very resourceful and able to get all of her daily needs met. She went to her doctor regularly. She shopped frequently, used public transportation, and was seen in the community often. Mrs. Smith had a back injury that led her to overuse pain medication on a very regular basis. We were called in numerous times for Mrs. Smith. We often found Mrs. Smith laying on her couch in urine and feces-soaked Depends. She was able to change herself most of the time, and sometimes she wasn't. And yes, we assisted her a few times. Despite our numerous calls to 911, the hospital, her doctor, Mrs. Smith continued to have capacity to make decisions for herself. We maintained a friendly relationship with Mrs. Smith, even though she yelled at us often to get out, but we checked on her often. We were usually able to get in and talk with her and check on her if we brought cat food. So that was what we did. We brought cat food. Despite our numerous attempts to change the living environment with Mrs. Smith, sadly, she passed away in the hospital. Next slide. So this is our daily balancing act for APS, assessing for immediate safety and the right to self-determination lifestyle choices. Our job is to provide the least restrictive services and support for our clients to the best of our ability while respecting their right to choose. Next slide. These are the increasing trends we're seeing in APS right now. So our Medi-Cal versus our non-Medi-Cal seniors. With our non-Medi-Cal seniors, they have savings or monthly income, but they're unwilling to spend it on any type of assistance in their home. So this is always a challenge to try and have our clients spend a little bit of their money for the extra care that they need in their home. The long-term case management needs. Since our clients are getting older and there's multiple lifestyle challenges, it's requiring more visits and increased case management time. For example, interfacing with doctors, the family, or setting up community resources. The family dynamics is also a large factor in our cases. They're becoming more complex because multi-generations are living together due to economic reasons, especially with COVID. And oftentimes it's the senior with the Social Security income that is left to support the family. And we also see a lack of power of attorney, a lack of advanced planning. So there's no powers of attorney for finance, there's no powers of attorney for healthcare. So nobody is able to legally step in on that client's behalf to assist that client. And then also we see there's just simply no family. There's just nobody that the client has available to help them at all. Next slide. So here is our number for reporting purposes. You can call for neglect or even a welfare check or suspected abuse. So that's our main line. And then I just want to leave you with a message with empowerment. The process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life. Women are outliving their spouses on an average by 10 years. 60% of our cases are women, and this is only going to continue to increase. So I encourage all of you to pre-plan with powers of attorney of healthcare and finance and trusts, and identify key people in your life who can assist you through the aging process. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers will be introduced by Penny, our program co-chair. I think Penny is here somewhere, right?
I'm here.
There you are.
Okay. Our last speaker this morning comes to us through my daughter, Jamie Reeves. When Bernadette Bupp and I discussed what we wanted to include in a program on elder abuse, I immediately thought of my own challenging experiences trying to navigate the world of cybersecurity in this day and age. Jamie has been a valuable asset to me in my quest to stay safe online. The first hint that I needed some help came the day when I asked Jamie to keep our password binder for us while we were traveling. When I handed her the bright green binder marked passwords in bold black letters, she knew I needed some help right away. She has educated me on valuable ways to stay safe online, saved me from several scams, and recently taught me how to manage all my passwords on a password manager site. Jamie, a Grass Valley native, is a senior project and portfolio manager for EDUCAUSE, whose mission is advancing higher education through the use of technology. She will be introducing a colleague of hers, Ilene Klein, who is a global cybersecurity expert and who will be our next speaker. So let me hand it over to Jamie.
Thanks, Penny. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here, surrounded by such a wonderful community. So as many of you know, sort of a benefit of being a middle-aged career person is your network, knowing people who know people who know people. And I do dabble in cybersecurity in my job, but in all honesty, it's more in theory than it is in practice. So I was connected with Ilene a couple months ago and just really grateful that she not only agreed to present to this group, but also she is a true expert in this field and has an absolute passion for educating the public on cybercrime and threats. So I think with that, I will pass the digital mic to Ilene and she can educate us.
Jamie and everybody, thank you very much for the invitation. Seriously, I love this stuff and I know that's sick. I know that's relatively not normal, but what can I say? That's how it goes. All right, hopefully you can see the slides.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, was that a yes?
Yes.
Yes, cool, thank you. People who know me know that actually, this is going to sound weird, but I really hate technology and I don't consider myself technical anymore. Today, I want to talk about some of the current cyber scams. And just so you know, I have shared this presentation because there's a whole lot more in here than I have time to discuss this morning. If you do have any questions, yep, put them in the chat. I will stay here as long as you need me and answer pretty much anything. And if I don't know the answer, I will either make it up. That was a joke, by the way, or, you know, do some research or ask some friends. So real quick, who am I? Am I even qualified to talk to you? Well, I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area, but I've lived all over. I was lucky enough, I've worked for some very large, some global organizations, and I basically grew up in the cybersecurity field before it was even called cybersecurity. So I was fortunate to actually build a bunch of programs like threat and vulnerability management, incident response, all kinds of governance stuff. I can write a security policy in my sleep, unfortunately. Security awareness programs. One of the ones I most recently built is a threat intelligence program for our Arizona Fusion Center. And this is the vanity slide. I've earned a bunch of certifications and awards, and I talk whenever people will let me. So now I work for the Cybercrime Support Network. This is the coolest organization I've ever worked for, seriously, and I've been around. It's a nonprofit, and the whole mission is to help individuals and small businesses prevent having cybersecurity issues, help them recover and report when they do, and then reinforce best practices and other good ways to avoid cyber bad stuff so that they don't have further issues. Now, before we start, I don't know how to tell you this. I have a confession, and it's really hard to admit, especially since we just met, but I'm in love with you. I felt the connection immediately, and I really, really want to meet you in person, but I just don't have the money to come visit. I've had medical issues. I'm paying for medical expenses and college expenses for my kids, and my car broke down. But I really can't wait to see you face to face and feel your arms around me and put my arms around you. I just wish I could afford to come to see you. Just wondering if you guys have heard of things like that or seen things like that. Those are come-ons for a romance scam. So this is when a bad guy or bad gal uses online dating or social networking sites. They'll post an attractive picture. They will communicate with you, gain your trust, ask you all kinds of questions and get to know you. And then they may ask for money or information, or for you to do them a favor. Favors such as, I want to donate a lot of money to an African relief effort, but for some reason I can't get the money there. So I'm going to send you a check and you can keep 10%, but then would you please, send the rest via wire transfer to this African Relief Fund or other bank account. So the bad guy is actually asking for money, asking for information. Sometimes they ask about the fidelity of the victim's significant other and will use that to blackmail the victim. Contrary to popular opinion, victims of romance scams are not just women in our age group. And yes, I am the over 60 age group. Romance scams also target men, they target teenagers, but I specifically started with this one for, well, a reason I'll tell you about now. Oh, in a second. Just how to spot them. Here are the red flags. First, they move fast. In general, your new online friend is going to declare their undying love really quickly. I mean, inappropriately quickly. They will make the first move. They'll reveal secrets too soon. They will manipulate you with passive aggressive tendencies. They will ask you questions to see how much you're falling under their persuasion or sway. Another key thing is they generally hide or obfuscate their true face. They often use a fake picture. For whatever reason, when you try and set up a video call, their internet's not working or their video is not working. And they will ask you a lot of questions, but they won't answer your questions with specifics. Oftentimes, the romance scammer is overseas. The individual may say they're in the military or doing, Doctors Without Borders, or some other noble profession that prevents them from meeting you face to face. Now, a little digression. The FBI has what they call the Internet Crime Complaint Center, or IC3, and their website's up here. Now, I just want to warn you, I include a lot of links in this presentation. And if I didn't say this already, I provided the presentation so it can be posted online so you can look at it later. And I just want to show you, when you're looking at a link, in general, rule of thumb, it's always important first to see where that website is, where it's taking you. But if you start from the far right, in this case, the far right slash, and go back to the next period, this tells you it's going to, and you just work your way left a little bit, it's going to IC3. Again, that's the Internet Crime Complaint Center, and it's a government site. So this kind of sort of lets you know that this is going to a legitimate site. The HTTP, or you will see hopefully these days, HTTPS, That's the protocol. That's the set of rules that tells the internet how to communicate. This S basically says it's secure, meaning that all information, when you are communicating from your PC or your device to IC3 and back, all the communications are encrypted. So no one can easily, monitor the communications. Anyway, hopefully that was a little helpful, maybe slightly interesting, and I'm going to talk about that again later. Anyway, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center collects and investigates consumer complaints. They also issue an annual report, comes out in March generally every year. So their last year's report was just issued not that long ago. I always look at these reports because if we know what's hitting, what the bad guys are doing, well, we can warn people. So I want to go over a couple of the statistics about what's hitting, so you know what to be aware of. I'm starting with one that is probably not that surprising. The over 60 age group is the group that is, I can't 100% say they are the most targeted, because this is based on how many people complain or issue a file, or file a report with IC3. But in general, the over 60 group is a heavily targeted segment, mainly because they generally have the most money. And to be honest, they are generally not as tech savvy. But if you notice here, the age group 40 to 49, that's kind of high up there too. And total losses reported, this is just in 1 year. The over 60 age group lost a lot of money. Now, if you look at what types of cybercrime is hitting everybody, well, phishing is number one in the number of complaints. And I'm sure everybody has gotten phishing emails. That's when somebody pretends to be somebody else and tries to trick you into providing money, into clicking on a link, into opening up an attachment, or into providing information such as your social security number or your financial information. Now, a couple other terms on the same line. Vishing, V stands for voice. This is getting those scam telephone calls. Smishing, the S stands for short message service. So that's basically, you're getting these types of things from text messages. And then there are other just variations, farming and whaling, which is basically phishing either specific groups of people or other targeted entities. So phishing, really popular. And another fun fact that's not in this presentation, approximately 93% or so of all cybersecurity incidents start with a simple email. Now, if you go down the list a little bit, we have extortion and data breaches and identity theft. We expect those. Spoofing and misrepresentation, that is when somebody is impersonating another. And then we have the confidence fraud and romance scams. So in my example, I started with romance scams because they really are prevalent. Last year, almost 24,000 were reported. But if you look at the amount of money lost, it came in at number 2 with over $600,000. Now this first one, that is business email compromise, and EAC, to be honest, I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but it's another acronym that basically says somebody is getting an email scam, and it is 99% of the time focused on businesses. And I have a definition in here later. but I'm not really going to address it in this particular presentation. Anyway, one other thing, personal data breaches, that's still costing people a lot of money. Identity theft, costing people a lot of money. And those are kind of the biggies. One thing that I found was really interesting, terrorism, in theory, doesn't cost anybody anything. Just kind of a fun fact. Oh my God, you have to see this. Did you see that Princes William and Harry started fighting this morning at Prince Philip's funeral? Oh my God, click here. Click on this link to see the video. You have to see this immediately. Oh my God, we're all going to be talking about this. Chances are you've gotten some of those types of emails too, or text messages, where something has happened, you need to see it, you need to know about it now. Now, these types of scams take advantage of your curiosity. They, again, are very fast. They tend to be surprisingly sophisticated. For example, unfortunately, after the tsunami that hit Japan, what was that, a few years ago? And then the Fukushima reactor nuclear event that occurred, bad guys began using emails, fake websites, fake charities, and malicious downloads to try and steal money or plant malicious software on people's computers. Anytime there's a big event, any event that is going to make headlines, it could be a happy event like a marriage, celebrity marriage. It could be a sad event like a celebrity breakup. Well, that might actually be happy too. It could be a big sporting event. It could be, I don't know, anything political. So just beware if you get something that is really sensational and urges you, click here now. Oh my God. Just pause for a second, breathe. And then please don't blindly click. So there are some classic click here scams, like the infamous, hi, we have a delivery for you, but we can't deliver it for whatever reason. Click here to learn more, or download this attachment to learn more. Or this one's one of my favorites. You get an email from a police agency with a notification that you've been issued a traffic ticket. Maybe they say that here's a picture of the traffic camera that caught you violating some sort of law. Click here. These don't happen, by the way. And then variations on the theme. You may get something, an email from IRS. We are unable to process your tax return. Click here. And it has the logo. It looks really official, but the IRS doesn't send out emails like this. Another really, really popular scam is the wrong transaction scam, where you generally get an email or a text message that says, a hotel or store made a wrong transaction while processing your credit card, whether or not you stayed at the hotel or you purchased something from that store. Click here to get a refund, or click here to contest this transaction. A variant that was really popular is when you get something about your recent iTunes purchase, but you may not have iTunes or purchase from them. But wait, just click here and we will remove that transaction. Most of the time, it is going to install malicious software on your device. Oftentimes, the bad person is going to try and get your credit card information and other personal information. Before we continue, you get a phone call. Grandma, I'm on vacation in Canada and I was in a car accident. The sound quality is usually bad. But please wire me $3,000 to pay for medical expenses. Or a friend may call you and tell you that they're on vacation in London and they were mugged. They can't pay their hotel bill, so they're going to be arrested and sent to jail. Wire the individual $2,500 as soon as you can, and they promise they'll pay you back as soon as they get home. Again, common scams. These prey on your goodwill, your desire to help. They're scams, I can guarantee. And I have a really short story to tell about this. My big brother actually did go on a skiing vacation in Vermont by himself, which is what he generally does because his wife doesn't ski. And yes, he actually ran out of money. Yes, this is my big brother. He's not always the smartest when it comes to finances. So I went to my bank to wire him money. And I spoke to a manager there and told him, wiring my big brother money, he's on vacation, he ran out. The manager got this amazing look on his face of, oh my God, this poor woman is being scammed. And I could just see in his face, he was getting ready to break that to me. And I told him, look, I know this is legit. This is my job. And we actually had a really good discussion on some of the current scams, what he was seeing. I shared some of the presentations with him that I have so he could share those out. But yeah, this really happens, unfortunately. Oh, other favorites. These were really popular, years ago. You'll see this graphic. The date is 2011. By the way, this is a real graphic from my PC at the time. And these tech support scams still continue because people still fall for them. I've had personal friends who have fallen for these types of scams. And this is when you receive a phone call or a pop-up may show up on your PC or other device. And in this particular case, it was a phone call. A man called me claiming to be from the Microsoft Windows Service Center. He said my computer had all kinds of malicious software for it, which is why it was showing up at Microsoft. And the man will clean it up for me. Now, in this particular example, he actually talked me through opening up what's called the Windows Event Viewer. And this is part of the operating system for your computer that lets you see any type of errors where some sort of program doesn't run correctly. This scammer basically said these warnings proved that my PC needs help. Now in real life, nothing on your PC or other device is going to run perfectly all the time. You're always going to get warnings and errors. Things are going to end abnormally. It just happens. So seeing warnings and errors on this is 100% normal. There was another type of tech support scam where the bad guy talked the person, the victim or potential victim, to look for a specific application file, which resides on the computer as part of its normal files. But the bad guy made it seem that having this particular file on the computer system was an indication that there was malicious software on it. Also, this particular situation with this gentleman who called me, he claimed his name was Richard Thomas. He had a very heavy Indian accent. Not that that necessarily means anything. I actually played along with him for a while. I asked him for his phone number just in case we got cut off. And that's when he hung up on me. I have had other calls similar to this, and I play along with him for a while. I had one gentleman at one point for one of the calls, I just got tired and annoyed with him. I told him I knew he was a scammer based on the caller ID number. And he called me a really nasty name and then hung up on me. But again, these still occur if there is no company that you don't pay for that is providing you software that's going to contact you to say that you have malicious software on your computer or that you need someone to log into your device to fix it for you. Yes, your devices, you're going to get pop-up messages that are legitimate from, hopefully everybody is running antivirus or anti-malware software or endpoint protection. And that's going to give you pop-ups. Learn what yours look like. When it's time for you to update your system, Windows and Apple will generally tell you. Learn what those look like, the legitimate ones. And I have better ideas coming up. Now I want to talk about two other types of scams. These are ones that try and extort you out of money. The first one is the hitman scam. And you may think this is ridiculous, but I got this information from an FBI buddy because he was seeing a rash of these. In the scam, you generally get an email or even a text that somebody wants you dead, and they hired this hitman to kill you. Now, this individual, the scammer, may provide some personal information that he most likely got from either a previous data breach or just from reviewing like your social media pages or other public information. And this hitman, supposed hitman, is having, I don't know, a crisis of confidence because he doesn't want to kill you. So if you pay him, he'll tell you who hired him. Again, this may come across as scary, but it is seriously just a scam. The other one, this is one of my favorites. This is called a sextortion scam. And in this case, somebody is hacked into, you get an email, generally an email that says, hi, you know, I hate to tell you this, but I've hacked into your device's camera and I have a video of you doing something, well, let's just say really, really personal. Or they may say they hacked into your device and stole some really, really personal photos. And if you don't pay him, he's going to share either the video or the photos with everyone in your contact list, or he's going to just post them online for everybody to see. Now, in another variation, the bad guy says, if you don't give him more photos or more video, he's actually going to, you know, share all the nasty stuff he says he's collected. Now, some of the more recent email threats have actually included one of your real passwords. And the reason the bad guy includes that is it makes it seem this threat is more legitimate. But the password is generally an old one, or it's from an old breach, or it's one you don't even remember using. Again, these are scary, but they're just scams. The sextortion tends to come in cycles. For example, we'd see them like every quarter. There would be a whole rash of these sextortion scams go out. Again, red flags in general, if an unknown person or other entity, financial institution, if they want something from you, money, information, access to your device, that's actually a red flag. Anything that is unsolicited, if you didn't initiate contact, somebody calls you out of the blue, says, hi, I'm from the Social Security Administration, and we've gotten a report that your Social Security number has been stolen. I'm here to help you. Just give me your Social Security number to verify that you are who I think you are. That's a scam. The individual may try and gain your trust, or they may try to intimidate you. Really, if you don't act, if you don't give me this information, we are going to send warrant officers to your house to arrest you. The unknown person may try to impersonate somebody else. Like I said, a government entity, a relative, a friend, a love interest, a bank, a store. And most importantly, it usually requires you to act now, immediately. Huge red flags. Another huge red flags, if you are asked to pay in gift cards or wire transfer, that's 99.9% of the time that is going to be a scam. Another variation, if you receive a check for too much money, some sort of overpayment, and you're asked to send back the amount of overpayment, 95% or so of the time, that's a scam. So what do? In general, disconnect and delete. Disconnect the communication, hang up on the person. If you have an ongoing chat communication with this person or social media pages where you have friended this person, unfriend, disconnect the relationship. In general, if you have not responded, just delete the email, just delete the text. If you have been responded, if you've been affected, if you've lost money or information, please report it to IC3. And in this case, keep any evidence that you may have. Emails, canceled checks, any receipts for prepaid cards or wire transfers, any chat transcripts, anything that could be used as evidence. Now, I want to give you a fair warning. After you report to IC3, you may never hear back from them. But that doesn't mean they are not acting on what you gave them or the information that you gave them. Mainly, they take it in, they consolidate it, they look for trends, they notify the FBI field offices around the country. If there is enough information about like a specific bad guy group, they will start investigating. So I know sometimes it may seem like a report goes into a black hole, but be aware that on the back end, FBI really is working on this. They really are sharing information out to other organizations, other law enforcement entities, fusion centers around the country. The information is important. Reporting this stuff is important. Other things to do, if there is any hint that your password has been compromised, change it. Check your device for any malicious software. If there is any hint that somebody has gained access to your device without your knowledge, or even with your knowledge. And of course, if there is any hint of financial impropriety, check your financial statements, credit reports, and take steps if your identity has been stolen. So I hope you like my guard pug on duty. I used to have a pug. Here's some top ways to prevent cyber issues. Like I said, don't blindly click on anything. Specifically, unexpected links and email attachments. I'm sure you've all heard that 100,000 times before. But also, when you're surfing the web, don't click on ads on the websites, like the ones that show up on the side or the top of the page. If you see an ad that intrigues you, just make note of who the store is or organization, service, or company, and then look them up and log in, enter their webpage manually. Bad guys will purchase ad space on legitimate websites, and then the ad may take you to a malicious site, or clicking on the ad may cause malicious software to download to your device. The other thing, and again, this is something else I'm sure you've heard before, on social media, please don't post too much information about yourself, and especially your family, especially pictures of children or grandchildren. Bad guys, gangs, predators troll social media looking for pictures of children and target those children. Bad guys search social media looking for information about people, information that they can use to maybe guess the person's password, information they can use to make an email look and sound more legitimate, information that can be used for physical crime. Hey, I am going on vacation to Hawaii next week, so I'm going to be gone all week, which tells a bad guy that your home is most likely going to be unattended and available to burglarize. Or, hey, look at this new 65-inch, really fancy TV I just purchased. It was really hard to get into the house. Well, that tells a bad guy that you have a new TV that's ready to steal. I mentioned anti-malware or antivirus software. Make sure it's running, it's up to date. Set it to automatically update, because most of the time, a lot of these programs look for what are called signatures of malicious software. And those signatures change all the time. So yes, set it to automatically update. And you're going to get notices regularly from Microsoft and Apple and Adobe and other software that there are updates to their programs. And again, I suggest you set your devices to automatically update. To do that, Microsoft and Apple both have really good websites that explain how. If you do, go to Microsoft.com or Apple.com and look for, home PC users. In general, it'll tell you how to do all that. One of the key things, and I'm sure you've heard everyone say, you need to use a strong password. Well, these days, a longer password is more important than a password's complexity. The old days, we had 8-character passwords. You had to have an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character. Well, that's because bad guys would try every single combination of 8 characters. A, A1, A2, and down. And bad guys still do that. But with computing power these days, the longer your password, the stronger. And we recommend passphrases. So pick your favorite phrase that people don't know that is your favorite phrase, or pick the first line out of a book or something. Longer is more important than complexity. And of course, back up your information regularly. Again, check your operating system, Apple or Microsoft, for ways to do that. They have a lot of good suggestions and methods. In general, be skeptical. As I mentioned, be suspicious of sensational, upsetting, or exciting, but false statements. They could be happy ones, they could be sad ones. The goal is to get you to click or react immediately without thinking. I mentioned links and email attachments. As I say, verify and then ignore commands and requests for action, especially ones that are unexpected or unreasonable. Verify the identity of a message sender. And one of the cool things you can do, if you are looking at an email on a PC and there's a link in that email, if you put your mouse over the link and then look at the bottom left corner of your browser window, it'll show you where that link is actually going. It'll show you the website that it's going to. So you can look to see whether or not it is more likely to be legitimate or fake. Now, for phone scams specifically, please never give your credit card or personal information to an unsolicited phone caller. Again, if you place the call, yeah, that's okay. Make sure you are using a legitimate published phone number. Bad guys have actually set up call centers. For example, you may get an email or a text that says, hi, I'm your bank, and we've seen fraudulent activity on your account. Call this number to verify. And you call that number, and it's actually the bad guy's call center. So on the back of every payment card is the phone number for your bank or whoever issued the card. Or look up their phone number online or on, if anyone still has phone books around. If you can, verify the caller's identity by getting their full name and a business phone number. And then you can actually look up that phone number online and see if it goes back to the business. For the family members in distress, call your family and friends to verify before you give any money. And especially before you panic. Get as much information from the scammer as you can. Like if they give you a phone number or where to wire the money, or any other information, because you can report that, like I said, to IC3. Where can you find more information? I have just touched on a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of cybersecurity and scam stuff. There is so much more out there, which is actually a bad thing if you think about it. But the Cybercrime Support Network, my organization, we have a website called Fight Cybercrime. And we have all kinds of resources available, including a cyber resource catalog where you can look up information about things like romance scams, tax ID scams, what to do if you've been a victim of identity theft. So I recommend you just take a look at the site. It's really cool. And before I close out, I want to share some really good news. I've spoken about FBI a lot in this presentation, mainly IC3, but I work with a lot of federal, local law enforcement partners, as well as a lot of organizations and security researchers and security companies. And we really believe the more information we share, the better it is for everybody. So not to always highlight FBI in this particular presentation, but I want to highlight something that was actually just announced this week. All right, you may have heard in the news last month that Chinese state-sponsored hackers got access to email servers of governments and companies and stole the email. It was announced on the nightly news, which is never a good thing. But these attackers left back doors on the servers, which let them come back and, plant malicious software like ransomware, steal more information. Well, the FBI actually obtained a search warrant and they accessed hundreds of those compromised servers and removed the backdoors. Now, FBI is going back to who they can identify as the owner of the server and letting the owner know, oh, by the way, we removed a backdoor on your server. This is the first known case of the FBI effectively cleaning up private networks following a cyber attack. Generally, law enforcement is not part of an incident response. They will not touch anybody's computer system. They will work with the local company's incident response team. They will provide advice, they will collect evidence. Oh, and the FBI did collect evidence in these cases. But like I said, this is kind of a big deal. Expect to hear more about this because there are questions, legal questions and privacy and liability issues of having a federal law enforcement agency access a private network. But my opinion, just my opinion, I think this is a good thing because finding those back doors, especially for a small business, it would be really hard for them to do. So I want to thank you all very much again for the invitation to speak. Here's my information, the websites, Cybercrime Support, Fight Cybercrime, and Scam Spotter. And I also want to point out that I always have a supplemental information. Well, I almost always have a supplemental information section in my presentations. Yes, I call it the More Cowbell for those of you who are familiar with that Saturday Night Live sketch. And I have links in here. And again, when looking at this link to help tell whether or not it's legitimate, look for the last period and find that slash and then work your way left. So you can see that the first one is going to ic3.gov. The one with the Google reverse image search is going to google.com. One way to think of this, the support.google.com, is think of the google.com as being a house and support is like the bedroom of the house. And then this web search, blah, 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 that's kind of like the king bed in the bedroom. Some cool tools. If you're interested in disinformation campaigns, the Department of Homeland Security wrote this really good paper on it. And again, if you look at this website, find that first slash, and then you can see it's a .gov government site. It's Department of Homeland Security. And then this is like the actual file name. What happens in Internet Minute, more statistics, and then more information about breaches and our attackers. And then I go into a little more detail about how to read a website name so you can tell whether or not it's fake or legitimate. And in here, there are some actual examples and how to think about them. And of course, I have to always end on something a little more lighthearted. All right, so I am going to stop sharing and come back. And hopefully that was useful, helpful.